Okay, so next we want to talk about inventory cost flows. Let's see, I don't think we want to start here, do we? Guess we do. All right, so here we've got a couple of different ways that we can, well, actually 3 or 4 ways we can deal with the flow of our inventories. And so what we have to do when we set this up is think about what items we want to flow out of inventory when we sell them. We can do this either by specifically identifying each item we sell. Certainly that would work if the items we sell are fairly unique, kind of low volume. Sell Ferraris, you probably don't sell very many of those. They're unique. They're identified by a VIN. So, it would be fairly easy to specifically identify each Ferrari you sell. So you would probably use the cost flow assumption called specific identification. And each time you sell a, let's say you have a yellow Ferrari, and the VIN is 123 for simplification. Well, you're going to take that out of your inventory, list it as cost of goods sold. Versus, maybe a yellow Ferrari with the VIN 8910. If you didn't sell that item, it remains in your ending inventory or remaining inventory. Now, what if you sell inventory in volumes, or the items you sell are fairly homogeneous, not unique? Bananas, Barbies, things like that. They all look alike. You can't distinguish one from the other like you can a Ferrari. So if you have that situation going on, you probably want to use not specific ID, but one of these other cost flow, inventory cost flow assumptions. And so the options you have are the first in, first out approach, the last in, first out, or the weighted average cost approach. Now, why do you have to identify specific items as either sold or in your ending inventory? Because, if we bought all these items for the same price throughout the year, it really wouldn't matter what approach you use, because they would have all cost the same, right? But that is not how things work in the real world. Costs go up and down because we purchase items of inventory at during the year generally tend to go up, although they can go down. And there could be some fluctuations of up and down during the year. But for the most part, over time, costs to purchase inventory are going to go up. So that's why we have these other methods. All right, so we have this illustration here. Browning company inventory information. Beginning inventory 4,000 units at 550, total cost of 22,000. during the year, they purchase uh, on January 17th, 1,000 units at $6 per unit. So prices are going up. So add 6,000. March 22nd, they purchased 3,000 units at $7 per unit, so 21,000. And October 15, 3,000 units at $7.15. So they purchased a total of 11,000 units during the year. So those are the goods, the number of units of goods available for sale. The total cost of goods available for sale during the year is $71,500. So extending this example, this company makes sales on January 10. They sell 2,000 units. On April 15, they sell 1,500 units. And on November 20th, they sell 3,000 units. So they sell a total of 6,500 units during the year. So the question is, what is the cost of the 6,500 units that they sell? Well, it depends on the inventory cost flow assumption that management chooses to use. So we've got 11,000 units available. At the end of the year, since they've sold 6,500 units, they have 4,500 units in their ending inventory. So the other question is, what is the cost of their ending inventory? Not only the cost of goods sold, but the cost of their ending inventory. So here you see those questions. Again, it depends on our cost flow assumptions, or our inventory cost flow assumptions. All right, so specific ID method matches each unit sold during the period, or each unit on hand at the end of the period, with its actual cost. Again, we use this method when we have unique, expensive products and low sales volume. Ferraris. Again, management has flexibility as to which inventory cost flow assumptions they use, and understand that they might use a specific category of inventory using one cost flow assumptions and a different category of inventory using a different cost flow assumption. Look at Walmart. They might decide to use, I'm not saying they do, but they might use one cost flow assumption for their grocery items, since most of those items are not unique. They might use first in, first out method for those items, whereas for their electronic items, if they're unique enough, they can use specific ID method. Now, once you pick a method for a specific category of inventory, you've got to stick with it too. Now, these are cost flow assumptions. This has nothing to do with the physical flow of the inventory. In other words, for instance, last in, first out. Last in, first out assumes that the items sold are the last items that the company purchased, not the first items. And so they can make this cost flow inventory assumption, but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't sell the first items that they purchased. Okay, so again, if they're smart, they'll the physical flow will be the first items that they purchase, but the cost flow assumption can still be LIFO, the last items purchased, especially when you're dealing with items that are fungible, that are where you might have spoilage. You might want to sell, you probably want to sell the first items that you purchase, even though you're reporting for cost flow assumption purposes the last items you purchased. All right, so here are your three methods. Average cost assumes that the inventory cost is a mix of all goods available for sale. The average is weighted by the number of units. So you divide the total cost of units purchased into the number of units that you have. First out, first in, first out assumes the first items acquired are the items that are sold first. Any inventory consists of the most recent items purchased. Last in, first out is just the opposite of first in, first out. It assumes that the units last acquired are sold first, and that the ending inventory consists of the items that were first acquired. All right, so here's an example, our running example, using the average cost method. Now this is for a company that would have a periodic inventory system. We'll look at a second how you would do this with a perpetual inventory system. And the difference is you're going to calculate the weighted average cost at the end of the period, whereas with a perpetual inventory system, you have to do this weighted average cost calculation each time you make a purchase of new items of inventory. So let's look at how that's done. Periodic, we have a total number of items here of 11,000 units, beginning with the 4,000 beginning inventory, plus the purchases of 7,000 units. So those are our total number of units. The total cost of those units is 71,500, and so we divide the 71,500 cost of goods available for sale by the number of units available for sale, 11,000, to come up with a weighted average cost per unit of $6.50. So you simply take the number of items you have sold, the 6,500, and multiply that by 650, and then the number of items in ending inventory, the 4,500, you multiply that times 650, and you get your cost of goods sold and your ending inventory. So compare that with perpetual inventory system. Here you have to compute what they call the moving average unit cost each additional time inventory is purchased. The new average is determined after each purchase by summing the cost of the previous inventory balance and the cost of the new purchase, and dividing this total cost by the number of units on hand. So here we have the same example. So we have our beginning inventory. We have 4,000 units of 550. On January 10, we sell 2,000 of those units. So after that sale, we have remaining 2,000 units at $550. So exactly half, so 11,000. And then on January 17, we purchased 1,000. So we've got to take the 2,000 plus the 1,000 units. So we have at that point 3,000 units available for sale. The cost of those units is a total of the 11,000 plus the 6,000 just purchased. So 17,000 is divided into 3,000 to come up with the average unit cost of 5.667 per unit. And then on March 22nd, we purchase another 3,000. So we have to take the 3,000 we had plus the 3,000 we just purchased. So that's 6,000 units. And the cost, previous cost of 17,000, we add to that 21,000 of the units just purchased to come up with 38,000. So we take the 38,000 and divide it into 6,000 units to come up with a average cost per unit of 6.333 per unit. All right, and then on April 15, we sell 1,500 of those, and we're going to price those at our average cost per unit of 6.333, which is $9,500, and what remains is 4,500 at that cost per unit as well. And so then on October 15, we purchased 3,000 units at $750. So we're going to add the 4,500 units we had before the purchase to the number of items just purchased. So it's going to be 7,500. And we're going to divide the total amount of the inventory we had on hand before plus the cost of this purchase, 22,500, into the number of units we have on hand. And then on November 20th, so that's going to be 680 per unit. So we sell 3,000 of those units at 680 per unit, which is going to be 20,400, and what remains is 4,500 units at 680, equaling 30,600 in our ending inventory. So if you look at the items sold, the amount of those items sold, you add up the 11,000 plus the 9,500 plus the 20,400 to come up with cost of goods sold total of 40,900. That's about as hard as it gets. FIFO and LIFO, much easier. Again, FIFO assumes that the first units acquired are the first items sold, and the results using either whether you have a periodic or perpetual system will be the same. And so here, again, we sold, well, we had at the end of the year 11,000 units available for sale during the year. And of course, we purchased them at different costs. And the total amount of purchases, the total amount of items sold is 6,500. And so you're going to start at your beginning inventory, and you're going to take each layer out, the number of units sold in each layer. And if the amount that you sell is more than a layer, you go to the next layer until you come up with the total number of items sold. Now here, the total number of items sold is 6,500. So we start with our beginning inventory. The first items acquired are in beginning inventory. We only have 4,000 in beginning inventory, so we're going to have to go to that next layer, which is the 1,000 at $6. Well, we use that up. That's 5,000 units that we've accounted for. And so we have to go to that next layer of 1,500 units. And fortunately for our example, that layer exactly uses up all of the units sold. You know, if the number of units sold was 7,000 instead of 6,500, we'd have to go to that next layer, March 22nd, and use up 500 from that layer. But here it's exactly the amount of our first 3 layers. And so you just take and multiply the number in each layer times the cost per each layer to come up with the cost of goods sold. And what remains is the remaining 2 layers of 1,500 at 7 and 3,000 units at 750. So here's your cost of goods sold, and what remains is 4,500 units at 15 at 7 and 1,500 at 7 and 3,000 at 750. So ending inventory 33,000, cost of goods sold at 38,500. You come up with the same results here in a perpetual inventory system if you're using FIFO. Your ending inventory balance is still 33,000. Your cost of goods sold is 38,500. Okay, so same results whether you have a perpetual or periodic inventory system when you use the FIFO inventory cost flow assumption. With LIFO, not so much. Here, you're assuming the last items purchased are the items that are sold first. So what you have to do is you have to start at the bottom here and work your way up. And so here, we're going to start with the last items purchased. Those are the items purchased October 15. Remember, we sold 6,500, so we're going to take 3,000 from the layer dated October 15. We still have 3,500 left, so we're going to go to the next layer up, March 22nd. Well, after using up that layer, we still have 500 units left. We're going to go to the January 17 layer, and remember we had 1,000 units bought in that layer, but since we sold only 6,500, we're only going to take 500 from that layer, leaving 500 left in ending inventory. And so you're going to take and multiply those number of units times the unit cost for each layer to come up with cost of goods sold, and the same for ending inventory. So here, ending inventory is 25,000. It's a lower amount than FIFO, and cost of goods sold is a higher amount than FIFO. And notice it says in the deal up here, last in, first out, FIFO, but that should be LIFO. That's a typo. So this is the periodic system. LIFO. Notice you're going to have a different result in your ending inventory amount and your uh, cost of goods sold. Again, what you're doing is you're just doing this at the end of the year, calculating based upon what you have available at the end of the year and segregating between the units that you sold versus the units you still have on hand. Now, LIFO calculations under the perpetual system are done during each sale. So again, we start with our 22,000 in beginning inventory, and on January 10 we sell half of those, so we've got 11,000 remaining in inventory. On January 17 we purchase an additional 1,000 units at $6 per unit, and so we add that to our 11,000, so that's going to be 3,000 units at 17,000. We purchase another 3,000 at $7 per unit, so add 21,000 to come up with a total of $38,000. Now, our sale here on April 15 is for 1,500 units. Now, those 1,500 units that we sell using the LIFO cost flow assumption are going to come out of the last layer of 3,000 units at $7 per unit. And so what that's going to leave you with after that sale, so you're going to record 1,500 at $7 per unit as your cost of goods sold, which is going to leave you with an ending inventory after that sale of 2,000 at $5.50, which you had previously, 1,000 at $6 per unit, and then instead of 3,000 units at 7, it's now 1,500 units at 7. On October 15, you purchase another 750, so you're going to add those units at that price, so you now have $50,000 worth of inventory. You sell 3,000 of those units, those are going to be the last items purchased, and it's exactly the same number of units, so that layer of 3,000 at 750 gets eliminated, and what you're left with is, again, the 2,000 units at 550, the 1,000 units at 6, and the 1,500 at 7. Okay? So you can see that under LIFO, perpetual inventory system, you don't wait till the end of the year to figure out these or calculate these ending inventories and cost of goods sold. It's done at the time of each purchase, which is going to make the numbers different. Now notice that you're going to have the same amount total of cost of goods sold plus ending inventory, but the mix is different. So in times of rising costs, cost of goods sold for FIFO is going to be less than cost of goods sold for LIFO, which means that gross profit is going to be higher for FIFO than LIFO. Thus, net income is going to be higher for FIFO than LIFO. Also, and why is that? Well, it's because under FIFO, you're using the cheaper items uh, as the items that are first sold, whereas with LIFO, you're using the last items purchased as items sold. And in times of rising prices, the last items sold are going to be higher than the first items sold. As far as ending inventory, FIFO is going to be higher than LIFO. That's because under LIFO, what remains in ending inventory are the first items purchased, whereas under FIFO, what remains in ending inventory are the last items purchased at the higher prices. Now, as far as average costs, the cost of goods sold amount as well as the ending inventory are always going to fall somewhere between FIFO and LIFO. In times of declining costs, the effects are just the opposite. And so as far as disclosures, what do you have to disclose? Well, you have to disclose your methods. All these are permissible under GAAP. Companies, like I said, need not use the same method for the entire inventory. And they must identify in their disclosure notes the methods used. Note that a large number of companies use FIFO over these other types of methods. A couple of other things. Let's move on here. You can look at these later. You can, well, you want to meet certain objectives when you're deciding which inventory method to use, inventory cost flow assumption to use. Probably more companies use FIFO because it results in higher net income. Now, higher net income, well, why higher net income? Well, better results that investors see. It helps them meet their bonus requirements, whereas LIFO and weighted average, these numbers would be less, and they may not meet their goals. Now, understand that if you use FIFO, you're going to have to report a higher income, and that includes taxable income as well as financial income, and so cost flow is going to be less if you use FIFO versus LIFO, but they're probably more concerned about how the numbers look to investors and bankers and things like that. So that's probably why most companies use FIFO. And again, you don't have to choose a method that approximates actual physical flow. You can use LIFO and still get out the first items purchased out of your inventory when you sell them. And note, if you use LIFO for income tax purposes, you also have to use LIFO for financial income purposes, and that's called the LIFO conformity rule. All right, let me see if there's anything else. I don't think so. You might look at these in Part B, methods for simplifying LIFO. I'm not going to go over them, um, but it starts at page 440. It's a couple of pages worth, but there's a couple of different ways you can simplify LIFO. The most prevalent probably is this LIFO inventory pools method, where you group inventory units into pools based on physical similarities of the individual units. But that's it for chapter 8.